Saturday in Gaza and the latest release of Israeli hostages. The three men looked gaunt and unhealthy, spurring criticism from the Israeli government of their treatment and driving greater urgency from hostage families for their captive loved ones to be released without delay. But delay is exactly what Hamas is now promising, saying next weekend's round of releases will be postponed. Hamas blames what it calls Israeli violations of the ceasefire, delaying Palestinians' return north, failures in facilitating humanitarian aid, and targeting Palestinians with airstrikes and gunfire. Yesterday, Israeli troops shot dead 3 Palestinians among a group that approached the Israeli-declared buffer zone in the north of the Strip. Israel's defense minister has called Hamas's statement a violation of the ceasefire deal, instructing the military to prepare at the highest level of readiness inside Gaza and to defend surrounding Israeli communities. Even before Hamas's announcement, Israel's prime minister was harangued in parliament by opposition members accusing him of risking the return of the hostages. He accused them of wanting to capitulate and talked up President Trump's surprise vision for Gaza's future, announced during his White House visit last week.
The historic meeting with President Trump was the most important, the friendliest and the most significant I've ever had with an American president. And I believe that there was not a more significant meeting with any other Prime Minister of Israel.
We'll build beautiful communities for the 1.9 million people.
President Trump, meanwhile, doubling down on his plan and more. No equivocation this time. Palestinians would be displaced to Egypt and Jordan permanently.
Think of it as a real estate development for the future. It would be a beautiful piece of land.
Would the Palestinians have the right to return?
No, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing, much better. In other words, I'm talking about building a permanent place for them, because if they have to return now, it'll be years before you could ever. It's not habitable.
That may be an apt description of Jabalia in northern Gaza, but one that doesn't account for the determination of its people to come back here and not to leave again.
This is impossible, impossible. No one would be willing to leave their homeland and emigrate. It is impossible. We die in our land and will not leave.
My response, I will remain in this country and on this land. If I die, I will die here and not leave Jabalia. I will not leave Jabalia camp.
In the occupied West Bank, Israeli military operations continue at an intense pace. An 8 months pregnant woman among those killed yesterday. And in East Jerusalem, a Palestinian-owned bookshop, long an institution, raided. Its proprietors arrested on suspicion of selling inciting material. This was always going to be a critical period, halfway through the first phase of the ceasefire. Now Egyptian mediators quoted as saying the entire deal is at risk. Talks for phase 2 postponed, with Hamas blaming both Israel and a US president who wants to empty Gaza and whose guarantees no longer apply.
Well, with me now is Hussam Zomlot, the Palestinian ambassador to the UK. How close is the ceasefire to breaking down, do you think?
It's very wobbly, and the last few days have seen Netanyahu saying publicly that he does not want to go to phase 2. He does not want to end the war. He wants to extend phase 1, already frustrating the mediator, and it is clear-cut. Netanyahu, the Israeli government, does not want to end their genocidal aggression on Gaza, and therefore they have killed 100 Palestinians in Gaza since the ceasefire agreement and implementation. They have killed dozens in the West Bank, displaced 35,000 as per the United Nations from Tulkarem and Jenin in the West Bank. They have detained more than 580 Palestinians in the West Bank, despite the fact that they had to release few hundreds. So the situation is very clear. Netanyahu wants to find any pretext to actually not go ahead with the ceasefire agreement as it is.
So do you think Hamas has done the right thing by announcing this delay?
What we need to make sure is that Hamas and all parties involved will implement the ceasefire. Breaking this agreement is a non-option. We have got to continue on this path.
So do you say to them tonight they should go ahead and release those hostages on Saturday?
The agreement must be fulfilled and implemented as is, and we call on the mediator to do so immediately and to make sure they lean on Netanyahu, because he is unhinged and his main calculations is internal. It's very obvious. He wants to go back to his coalition, saying that he did not honor these agreements.
It's looking more clear now, since we last spoke, that Donald Trump's plan to take over Gaza and not give the Palestinians the right to return, he now says, is making things worse.
Let's not comment on what Mr. Trump says every day, and then next day he backtracks and the White House comes with.
But Hamas is blaming it.
What matters?
They're saying he's undermined the American guarantee.
The real stuff is here. What matters is that Palestine is not a real estate deal. Gaza is not for sale. Gaza should and will be rebuilt. We have all the plans for that. People must be allowed to return to their homes and stay on their land. Gaza should be united with the West Bank. An international plan that is already on its way for establishing a state of Palestine is there, and we will call on President Trump soon to help us be part of that peace, that lasting, comprehensive peace. This zigzagging will not help anybody. And let's not be distracted, Krishnan, because much of this about the mass expulsion of the Palestinians, immoral, illegal, it's impractical. It's impractical. Much of this is also distraction, because in effect, while they are talking about that real estate deal, the genocide continues. It continues in Gaza, it continues in the West Bank. We want to make sure that the mass killing and destruction stops, the agreement upheld, and we move swiftly to rebuilding Gaza, uniting Gaza with the West Bank, stopping the monstrous settlement expansion in the West Bank, bring back life to a final resolution of the conflict, bring this international momentum with us. And you've heard from Saudi Arabia, from the rest of the international community, there will be an international conference in the UN in a few months' time to actually, once and for all, implement the two-state solution. We will call on President Trump to be part of that international momentum towards genuine peace, not real estate deals.
So given what is going on in the West Bank, even now, why are there reports now that the Palestinian Authority is thinking of changing its payment system to, well, what was called the martyrs' payments? Now, the Americans used to object to it. Israel objects to it. What's going on there?
There's no martyrs' payment. There are payment for the families of those victims of the Israeli occupation. Israel kills without any accountability. We have children, we have mothers, we have families that we have to take care of. So I haven't been following the details if it just broke out, but I can assure you the families of our martyrs, of our prisoners, must be taken care of by the Palestinian government, no matter what the scheme is.
I mean, what else now can be done to get this back on track? I mean, you know, it's all very well sort of exhorting the parties. Does anybody actually have the influence or the authority now to bring them back from the brink?
Of course, if we have leadership and statesmanship, if we really know where the heart of the matter is and the root cause of all this is, it is absolutely clear in the last 2 weeks when President Trump said that he wants to inflict forced displacement of Gaza and build something for the world to come and live in, the entire Israeli class did not oppose, not just Netanyahu, all the way to the very far left parties of Israel, the opposition. There is some sort of a consensus in the Israeli public now and the political system whereby they only see one people living in the historic land of Palestine. They don't see us. They have no place for us. So the idea of ethnic cleansing, the idea of erasure now has almost the majority supporting
and book seizures.
And why I'm saying this? I'm saying this from here we move to make sure that if we believe in sharing, if we believe in international consensus, if we believe in the two-state solution, this is a time for action. London must take action, including the immediate recognition of the state of Palestine, the imposition of sanctions on the settlers, the settler organizations, and the state that sponsors these settlements, the full arms embargo, not half arms embargo. No half commitments is required, and help us, help the state of Palestine, help the government of Palestine, help the region, go into that momentum of enforcing international legality rather than calling for it.
Ambassador, thank you very much.